We're back for version 11. Today we're looking at Foda Flux version 11, and today it's going to be all about ControlNet. So you'll still be able to use your usual stuff, Lora loaders, Lora stack that we looked at before, but now you're going to need to grab a couple of things. So we've got Canny v2, which just came out. Well, it says 15 hours ago now, but you know. Depth ControlNet v2 and HED ControlNet. Now you should be able to load all of these in exactly the same way. I'm going to be showing you the v1s, but in future we'll probably be using the v2s. So once you've grabbed them and put them in your ControlNet folder, I would also recommend Faye's Fantastic Details for Flux. It's pretty good. I include it in my stack. Before I forget, hit that bell. Now, where were we? And then you're going to want to head over to the v11 pack and grab yourself the latest version. Now, all of the base, that's kind of in the root. That was the v9 rework. The new stuff is going to be in the v11 folder. So from now on, they'll go in the folder, and then it's, you know, you've got your main versions are in the root, and then new stuff will be indicated. All the old versions are just archives now. Okay. So essentially, I've already shown you what to do and where you have to do it. So let's jump into the workflow and have a look. We've got 4 new workflows. So version number 1 would be Lora CNET lines. So this is just going to be text to image, image to image. Okay. But it's going to have the CNET stack. So you can see the CNET here. So if you haven't used these before, we have a switch. 1 is text to image. 2 is image to image. Your Lora stack's right here, so you can put your Loras in there. Obviously, if you don't want to load a Lora, disable it or use the on-off switches. I find it's easier just to turn the whole thing off, and then I can keep my mix. And then the ControlNet actually has a switch as well, so you can turn that on and off, and there's individual switches for each of them. So choose which version of the depth or Canny. And like I said, I'm going to be using the version 1 today. Pretty standard setup, really. 20 steps, Euler, simple. We've got separate denoise values for the text to image and image to image, like usual. And we're using a max shift of 1.5. So that is pretty much that. So let me just put it onto image to image mode. It is on image to image mode. We're going to be using this woman here. All right. And the prompt is a big randomizer. So let's see how it do. While it's running, you'll notice there's a new sort of comparator which I've built in. So it's going to take the original and the depth map. Obviously, you can change that, and you can change the text to whatever you want. But it comes saying original and the depth map. And then over here, we're going to have the output. Okay, so we used Canny and Depth, and we've got our original and we've got our output. So if we now take a look over here, we've got them all together. So we can kind of get an easier comparison going on. So it's got all the same details. Obviously, it has changed. All right. And this gave me the idea to make an enhancer. But basically, this is just your simple implementation. I don't think there's any tricks going on here. It's Lora loader, ControlNet loader, text to image, and image to image. That's all that is. Seeds up top. There is a place you can change your subfolder. And if you're looking for the noise, it's up there as well, next to the aspect controller. All right. Now, obviously, this is pretty standard, you know, putting the CNET into our Lora CNET from last time. So that should cover your basic usage. Obviously, I do have some special settings on my ControlNet stack. And they're not actually fully implemented here. Let me see. So 0 to 1. So what I actually found was 0.7 and 0.7. But obviously, it depends which ControlNet you're using and what you're working on. But essentially, I put this to 0.2 as well. So I'd have 0.2 of the steps. That didn't take, did it? 0.2 there. So I'd have 0.2 of the steps for the depth at full strength. And then at 70% strength, I do the last 30% of the steps with Canny. And that seemed to be a really nice combination. But obviously you get different effects from different balancing, or just using one or the other. Using them all at once, all the time, often blows it out. So if you're getting bad results, just turning the strength down might not be enough. You might want to consider not letting them overlap. So do a handover, do like 0 to 0.5 for the depth, and then 0.5 to 1 for the canny, for example. That'd be like where you'd start, and then you kind of start moving it around. It's like in Photoshop, you have the slider, and you can split the slider. It's a similar kind of thing. That's what I find anyway. So down here, we have our preprocessors. So obviously, if you don't use Zoe, you can put in some other depth anything, for example. All right, so that is that one. So let's move on to the next workflow. Right, we're back. Next workflow is SAM2 depth. So this is just depth because people specifically wanted something was specifically for depth. And so what I've done is I've combined it with our Inpaint SAM2. So you would prompt the mask, you prompt the thing you want to mask. Obviously, you put your image in here. Let's get one that's a little bit more safe for the censorship. They go mad when they see a bit of skin these days. So if I put this lady in here that we were just working on and we say dress, all right, and what it's going to do is it's going to use Florence to send the data for where the dress is to segment anything to, right? So then we've got the LLM segmenting the object we've typed in, right? And then that is going to then send that segmentation through to our Inpaint, right? So then we've got our Inpaint mask, nice and clean. And then obviously in the actual, wherever we're running this, we've got our Control Net. So it's just a depth right now, but it keeps it under control. And there's another version which has them all in, okay, like before. And again, we've got our little comparison up over in the top there, over here. So let's give it a run. What did I pick? Detailed leather, silk lace, gold inlay. So as you can see, we've got the depth map and we've got the mask. So what that means is it's only actually going to use the depth information for what's inside the mask. It's quite important because it opens up a whole bunch of other ways of doing it. It takes the effort away from having to paint it yourself, but it does sometimes do crazy things. Now, I'm quite happy with what it does, right? But this is just depth, okay? And obviously, if we were just going to keep on running, run, and we had it on random seed, it's going to give us more, right? Obviously, you can prompt edit, you can adjust the steps and everything, but I'm happy that the defaults give you a good place to start from, all right? So that's pretty straightforward, to be honest. I mean, you want to see what the result is without the depth on. Let's just turn it off here. So we'll just do that. Now, are we on random seed, though? Because, yeah, we are. I'm not going to do that comparison then because it's going to be silly. But here's another seed anyway. Okay. Obviously, your mileage will vary dependent on your settings, the picture, how good the mask took. What your prompt is, what Loras you have. So there's so much to this. And I hope that I did show that the, like I said, this one is just for depth, right? Just for depth. Everything that we've talked about applies. All right. So that's pretty simple. So now what we'll do is we'll go on to workflow number 3, which is basically the same thing, but with all of the control nets. Here we are, workflow number 3. This would be Foda Flux Inpainting SAM2 CNET lines. You can pretty much summarize that down to it's the same as the last one, but it's got more control nets now. So if I take a look over here, we've still got the SAM2. Okay. Just an interesting note. Well, actually, no, we're going to get that. We're going to get there. I'm jumping ahead of myself. All right. So we've got Flux Inpaint SAM2. Give it a run. Right. So I shouldn't hope this will take too long, as what we've done is we've added in the other control nets. So as you can see here, we've got the Zoe, Canny, and HED. Obviously, that would be your depth if you want to put in something else there. Everything's wired up, so it should work great. We've got a switch for the control net right there. Obviously, pick the depth model in the Canny version that you're currently going to use. I do have my handoff strategy set up wrong by the looks of it. Let me just have a look at this. 0.7 and 0.7 and 0.2. That tended to be what I like. Now what we've got here is we've got a picture of a eagle man with a queen of some kind, and we've got the mask prompt is dress, so it's already automatically masked out the dress, but it's left a lot of the detail alone. And then we have these maps to choose from. Now I like a mix of depth and Canny, or just Canny actually. Sometimes Canny is best on its own. HED didn't it? I don't know. It's like, I think it depends what you're doing. If you're doing photographic, you probably want Canny, but I think HED is going to be better for like anime. But I haven't really given that enough testing to confirm. But that seems to be, to me, probably the whole point. Anyway, so what we've got here is 20 steps, 1 denoise, Euler, simple. Okay, so I've changed it to ornate gold-plated armor. Let's see if we can get that dress to turn into armor. I'm currently using the same mix I showed you earlier. So, okay, well, it's doing something. It's doing something. It seems like it's, I might hit it twice. So let's see what the next one looks like. Okay, so it's given me some accents of gold armor. It's not quite gold-plated armor, but it's definitely gold armor. So, again, I think there's a little bit of finesse that's going into the prompting for the inpainting. You can't, I don't think you can really put massive prompts in there, but certainly it is having the effect. You know, if I turn that off, I mean, you can see the before and after. I said ornate gold-plated dress, I think. Let me just triple check. What the? Ornate gold-plated armor. I wonder what that was. Ornate gold-plated armor. It's not really armory enough to my liking, but it has done it. It has inpainted only wear, and it has used the details. So, I mean, to be honest, it could be that my ControlNet is too strong still. Sometimes ControlNet's super strong. So what I will do is I will turn off ControlNet, Canny, and we'll just have depth and see that. Okay, so if I do just depth on its own, I'm getting all this, which is quite interesting. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll turn, in fact, let me just hang on the screen there, because I know the compression sometimes gets people. That should be long enough. Right, so if I go over here and I say, okay, now I don't want depth and I only want Canny. So this was depth result. Let's take a look at the Canny only result. And there it is. So that would be just Canny on its own. Doing some strange stuff down here with just Canny on its own. But it is more, they're more like armored cuffs. So I guess, you know, this is what you have to do. You have to try and investigate. So we'll do HED now, just for the fun of it. Back over there. All right. And the results are a little bit weird. So this is what makes me think that's too strong, or it's on for too long, or maybe it's just not expecting this kind of image. But regardless, there's a couple of things that we can do here. We've been on image to image, I think, at the moment. Let me just check. So, you know, I've been finding that the Canny and the depth is the most useful thing for me so far with the inpainting. But then I've been doing mostly photorealism stuffs so far. So I think that HED is probably going to be better with an anime input, but like I said, that's for another day. For now, we're going to move on to the last new workflow. Okay, so a quick recap. We've got the depth, we got the Canny. So if you look at the difference on the depth there, it's quite nice. We go to the Canny, this is the sort of thing. Go to the HED, less impressive, but like I said, maybe it's because I'm using it with a realistic material, I don't know. And then here I show an example of prompting a face. So we mask the face, and then we invert the mask, and then it's gonna leave the face alone, which is a very useful thing to know how to do. So then we can regenerate everything, but keep the same face. The better the mask on the face, the better it will match. Okay, let's make this one a bit bigger because this one sort of brings it home. As you can see here, we've prompt mask face, or the face mask, and then invert the mask, and then using Canny, we've reimagined the scene. Okay, simple. And then now what we're going to do is move on and show you what the last workflow is. I'm calling it Flux Enhancer. The idea is to upscale it separately once you're done. So it's a two-stage thing. You use the enhancer on, you get any image, chuck it in, run it. Could even do like a big queue of them, and then batch upscale them when you're done. And this is just to take some of your older work and then basically reimagine it in Flux. So with the minimum effort, because I like minimum effort. It's nice when you're trying to just remix things. And obviously you can do some more and make it more like this. So you can see, as you can see, this is the original and this is the output. Now, when I zoom in and do like a 1-to-1, you'll be able to see there's actually like quite large differences in the quality. If you see the wiring under there, and then we look at this one, it's solid. Another thing was the frame, the general frame. It's quite pixelated and sketched out when you actually look at it up close. But when you go and look at the one which has been done with Flux, it's nice, much like there's less mistakes and less artifacts, and it just seems to be more drawn, or just more of a finished, I don't know, it just looks better. Bottom line is we're reimagining and enhancing. So anyway, let's jump into the workflow. So this right here is Flux Enhance lines because it only uses connecting lines. Up top, we've got an aspect size controller. You may or may not want to use that. There's also the seed control and a subfolder for saving all of the images. If we look up here, we have the Florence model loader here. That's the only other one. Otherwise, we're using the same loaders as always. If you have to load the checkpoint, you may have to make some adjustments, like basically re-hook up the model, the VAE, and the clip lines. So we're allowed to put in some pre-prompt, okay? But what it's actually going to do is it's going to send the image into Florence LLM, and then Florence is going to do a more detailed caption on the image, and then the caption is going to get concatenated as a string before being turned into clip text encoder into the conditioning. So essentially adding conditioning from caption. And if I show you here, look, it says a robot is standing in the air. The robot is white. There are white clouds in the sky. There is a building under the robot, right? And then we're also using image to image on 0.05 denoise, right? And then we're also using Canny and Depth. And basically, as I described to you earlier, these are the settings. So the first 10% of depth, last 30% on Canny at 70% strength. 20 steps on simple with Euler. This is all using Flux Schnell. And then we've got our little comparison thing down here so we can see what it's done. I've also made a sort of left to right, so I may as well just show you already. That's the difference. So it goes from being a bit crappy to being better than Nidji. Although I haven't done Nidji 6. I think there's a new one I haven't tried out. But I would think that if you put the better images that you put into it, the better you're going to get out of it. Because I messed around with photos and it did some cool stuff. And then also, this is intended to go into the Upscaler once you're done with this. Obviously, the Upscaler is part of the pack. You will find it in the main route, boosted Upscaler. That's the one. And what I do is I tend to run 2 tabs. So at the moment, I've got 4 open, so I could show you all of these new workflows. But normally, I have the tab I'm working with, and then I have my Upscaler tab. And then I'll kind of swap between the two. But just to show you what I mean, so what I will do, we don't want Jungle Punk Warrior. You almost don't actually need this pre-prompt, to be honest, because the caption does a great job of describing what the image is, but you might want to add some stuff, so it's always there for you. But if I just grab one of those images from one of my libraries, So let's take the astronaut woman. Astronaut woman. Let's try that. So I've not put any prompt in. Okay. I mean, obviously I've got raw photo, but I don't think it really listens to me when I say stuff like that. I've also got photographic here. So it's going to add cinematic photo, raw photo. So it's, again, it's like kind of don't really need it. And if you get a strong set of captions from the image, it's not going to listen to that anyway. Okay, so there we go. And then we're going to throw it into, let's see, Flux Scenery, Flux Realism, Flux Art Lora. Well, that's probably why it's coming out like, and Fantastic Details. Wait for it. And then we're using the Control Net stack as we've described. It's going to be Canny and Depth. First 10%, last 30%. Okay, and then there we have our final image. It's a little bit overcooked on that reflection, but otherwise it's all right. So let's take a look at the before and after. Oh, it turns out it already was. So the artifact I was complaining about was actually worse in the original anyway. So that's the original. That's the remix. Original, remix, original, remix. Now, I'll admit, it was actually a photograph before. Okay. So I'm sure there's ways that we can fix that, but at the moment, I just wanted to get this out. So what is it? I've tested it pretty good. We can go for base, right? And also another thing, if you don't like the read it gave you, there's a couple of things you can do. First, you can change the seed, okay? Because there's a seed on here, so you could just keep going and it's going to keep giving you a different caption. You could also increase the beams. I've currently got mine on 8. All it does is it just looks at the picture again. So what have we got? A woman is wearing a white spacesuit. She has a white helmet on top of her head. There is a pink curtain behind her. And that is going to give us, do you know what I could do? I could turn off the art Lora. That might actually be, giving it too much of a push towards the art. Even though I haven't said any trigger words, which is why I think it shouldn't really matter. But for the sake of argument, so we'll just wait for that last result. It's virtually not changed, has it? Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah, it's virtually unchanged. Oh, wait, no. See that there? Okay, so if I just want to use my upscaler and I just want to match the source, I'm going to bypass by dragging from the image loader to there. I'm going to bypass the directory loading system because we're not going to use it. And then I'm going to use the impact image info that's usually just sat there unconnected. Normally it goes width to width, height to height. So I'm going to take my width to the top because width is at the top, and my height to the height because the width is at the bottom. As you can see, that's how it's hooked up everywhere. Now, this is going to allow me to do my upscaling in my other tab. So if we go back to where we were just now, what I've done is I've done a little enhance on a colors output. So that would be my colors output. Let me just go down to the actual comparer. That'd be useful. So there's my original. And then there's my upscale redraw or whatever. Now, obviously, I can boost my shift. I can do all kinds of tricks. But if I'm happy with this here, I can then save my image. Well, obviously, it's already saved. And then we can go ahead and take it over to the upscaler, right? And that's the sort of intended flow for this. So there it is. Go. Now, one other thing I might change with this, just to speed it up, is I might just connect the output of stage 1 to the color correction, and then I can have my color correction at the same time. Just less messing about. Obviously, it's not going to work on the first run, but what I'll do is I'll make another one and come back when that's finished. Okay, so now we've got our image back. You can see this is a 1-to-1. And it is an art style. This isn't a photographic style. And I think that's something to do with the way I've injected the tokens there. Or rather, used the caption of the image to prompt. I think it could probably do with a little bit more just to keep it back into the sort of realms of photographic. But this is pretty good for artwork. You can even see that Exner. It's pretty sweet, like I say. I'm sure you know by now, like what you can do with the control nets and everything, but just having them out there and working, because I know that there were a lot of people saying, oh, it doesn't work with Schnell, it only works with Dev, or it only works with FP4 or anything. I'm using the same setup I've been using ever since day one, pretty much, which is the, the UNet diffusion methods. I'm still using AESFT, which is now Safe Tensors. Flux Schnell, that's now called Safe Tensors. And I'm using the E4M3FN FP8 clip. Apart from that, it shouldn't really be any different. People do say that the dev gives better results, but I wanted to focus on the open source or the less restrictive license, because Schnell seemed to be a lot more friendlier for creative people who just want to get off and hit the ground running. So that's pretty much everything for you then. That's all the CNETs. Be sure to check out the version 2s, because I think a lot of people didn't know that they came out sort of, I don't know, I would say a few hours ago, because it was technically today. But yeah, I'm not sure if anyone's really noticed that they've re-released those. So expect more, I would have thought. It's nice to see. They've also got some workflows here. I haven't actually even looked at the default workflows yet, but I don't doubt that they're going to be similar in how they work. I'll have a little look at them later and see if there's any settings I can glean. But that's pretty much everything I've got for you today, guys. We've got Control Net, Depth, Canny HED, in painting or text to image and image to image with full Lora stack support. So that's it. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. So, memberships are here. I've added donator and member. The donator membership is just you want to support the channel, help us grow. Member, you're going to get some exclusive video access. And check out the join now button for more information.